Let's be honest. Most people don't ask, how much car can I afford? They ask, what's the maximum loan the bank will give me? And that's the fastest way to trap yourself in debt and wonder why you're broke every month. See, 8, the dealership will smile, hand you the keys, and happily let you bury yourself in monthly payments. But that doesn't mean you can actually afford it. 48, affording something isn't about whether you can scrape together the payment, it's about whether it fits your financial life without strangling your future. So let's break it down. There's a simple rule called the 24-10 rule. Put at least 20% down, finance the car for no more than 4 years, and make sure all your car expenses, payments, insurance, gas don't exceed 10% of your monthly income. That's it. If your salary can't meet those conditions, you can't afford the car. Too many people flip this upside down. They put down next to nothing, stretch the loan out for 7 or 8 years, and end up paying for a car long after it's lost its shine. That's not affordability. That's slavery to a depreciating piece of metal. And speaking of depreciation, let's talk about the wealth killer nobody likes to mention. The moment you drive a brand new car off the lot, it loses around 10–20% of its value instantly. Within 5 years, most cars worth less than half of what you paid. Think about that for a second. You're sinking your hard-earned salary into something guaranteed to lose you money. If you bought a 50,000 car on a 60,000 salary, congratulations, you've just tied your entire year's income to something that will be worth half that in a few years. People think buying luxury makes them look rich. But what it really does is stop them from ever becoming rich. Here's the smarter way to think about it. Match your car's price to your salary. A good rule of thumb is this: don't spend more than half your annual income on a car. If you make 40,000 a year, your car shouldn't cost more than 20,000. If you make 80,000, sure, you can stretch to 40,000. But once you go beyond that, you're not buying a car anymore, you're buying financial chains. And I know someone will say, but I deserve it, I work hard. Of course, you deserve nice things, but do you deserve constant stress? Do you deserve living paycheck to paycheck just to impress people at a stoplight who don't care about you? Now, this brings us to a big question new Vez used. When your salary is still growing, when you're in your 20s or 30s and trying to build wealth, a used car is the smarter move 9 times out of 10. Why? Because the first owner has already eaten the biggest chunk of depreciation for you. You get the same car, maybe 2 or 3 years old, at a fraction of the cost. 48. Once your income has grown, your investments are paying off, and you've built real financial breathing room, then and only then should you think about driving brand new. Buying new too early is like ordering dessert before you've even paid for dinner. It feels good in the moment, but it wrecks you long term. At the end of the day, a car should be a tool, not a trap. It should take you to work, not stop you from building wealth. It should give you freedom, not chain you to monthly payments. If you want real financial independence, you need to stop asking, what car do I want? And start asking, what car does my salary actually allow without robbing my future? Answer that honestly, and you'll not only drive smarter, you'll live smarter. The 24-10 rule is one of the simplest but most effective guidelines you can follow when buying a car. And yet most people ignore it because they get caught up in the excitement of driving something new. The truth is, cars are emotional purchases. You see the shiny paint, smell the new leather seats, and suddenly forget that you're about to commit years of your future income to a machine that loses value the moment you drive it off the lot. The 24-10 rule is designed to keep you grounded, to protect you from that emotional rush, and to make sure that your purchase actually fits your financial reality instead of burying you in debt. So let's break it down. The first part is the 24. This means you should be putting down at least 20% of the car's price upfront as a down payment. Why? Because putting down less leaves you upside down on your loan almost immediately. Cars depreciate rapidly, often losing 10 to 20% of their value within the first year. If you only put down 5% or 0.8, you owe more on the car than it's worth as soon as you leave the dealership. That's how people end up stuck, unable to sell or trade in their car without taking a huge financial hit. Putting 20% down protects you. It gives you equity from day one, reduces the size of your loan, and lowers the interest you'll pay over time. The second part of the rule is the 4. This means you should never finance a car for longer than 4 years. Car dealerships love to stretch loans to 6, 7, even 8 years because it lowers your monthly payment and makes the car look more affordable than it really is. But here's the problem. Cars don't last forever, and the longer your loan, the more likely it is that you'll still be making payments on a car that has already worn down or lost most of its value. Financing over 4 years traps you in endless debt cycles. You finish paying off one car and immediately need another, so you roll the remaining debt into the new loan, and suddenly you've spent decades paying for vehicles that never stop draining your income. A 4-year maximum keeps you disciplined. The 48, it forces you to buy a car you can realistically afford, not just one that looks nice with artificially low monthly payments. The last part is the 10. This says that all of your car expenses, loan payment, insurance, gas, maintenance, should not exceed 10% of your gross monthly income. This is the part most people overlook because they only think about the loan payment. But owning a car is expensive, and the real costs come after you drive it off the lot. Insurance premiums, rising gas prices, oil changes, tire replacements, unexpected repairs, these are all part of the deal. If you ignore them, you'll be shocked at how much of your paycheck disappears into your car each month. By keeping total car expenses under 10% of your income, you guarantee that your car is serving you instead of draining you. If your salary is $4,000 a month, that means your total car budget shouldn't exceed $400. If the car you're eyeing doesn't fit into that equation, you can't afford it, no matter what the salesman tells you. Following the 20-4-10 rule does more than protect your bank account. It forces you to make rational decisions in a world where car buying is designed to make you emotional. It makes you think about cars as tools rather than status symbols, as necessities rather than trophies. And most importantly, it keeps your financial future intact. Because the biggest mistake people make with cars is treating them like assets, when in reality they are liabilities. They go down in value, they demand constant spending, and they never put money back in your pocket. By sticking to this simple rule, you ensure that your liability doesn't grow into a financial disaster. 8. It might mean driving something less flashy in the short term, but it will also mean you keep more of your money in your pocket, building wealth instead of throwing it away. The 20-4-10 rule isn't about limiting you. It's about freeing you from the trap of bad decisions that most people fall into when they confuse what they want with what they can afford. Depreciation is one of those financial concepts that most people know exists, but they rarely stop to think about how devastating it actually is to their wealth. It's silent because it doesn't hit you like a credit card bill or a loan payment, but it quietly chips away at your money every single day. And nowhere is depreciation more brutal than when it comes to cars. The second you drive a brand new car off the dealership lot, you lose money. Not because you did anything wrong, but because the car itself has already dropped in value just from being considered used. That first year alone, most cars lose between 10 and 20% of their value, and by the end of 5 years, they are usually worth less than half of what you originally paid. Think about that. You could spend 40,000 on a vehicle today, and in just a few years, it's barely worth a 20,000. That's not a minor loss. That's a direct hit to your net worth. The reason depreciation is so dangerous is that it tricks people into believing they are wealthier than they are. Someone buys a new car and thinks, oh, I own a 50,000 asset. But the truth is they own something that's racing toward becoming a 25,000 liability. Unlike a home, which can appreciate in value, or an investment, which can grow over time, cars are guaranteed to shrink in worth. They don't generate income, they demand constant spending, and they bleed value with every mile you drive. Yet people still treat them as if they are wise financial purchases. 8, they convince themselves that buying brand new is a reward for their hard work, when in reality, it's a reward for the dealership that just made thousands in profit while you set yourself up for years of silent losses. What makes depreciation worse is that most people finance their cars with long loans. That means they're paying interest on a vehicle that's simultaneously plummeting in value. Imagine borrowing 35,000 to buy a car, only to discover that within 2 years, 8, it's worth 25,000, but you still owe 30,000 on the loan. That's called being upside down, and it traps people in a cycle where they can't sell the car without taking a huge loss. But they also can't easily pay it off, so they roll the debt into another loan, and the cycle repeats. All the while, depreciation keeps eating away at their money in the background. It's like trying to fill a bucket with water while it's full of holes. You'll never get ahead. Some people argue that cars are necessary, and that's true. Most of us need them to get to work, to live our daily lives, to support our families. But there's a big difference between buying transportation and buying a status symbol. The silent wealth killer doesn't hit as hard when you buy a reliable used car that's already absorbed the steepest part of the depreciation curve. A 3-year-old car might be half the cost of new, but it still works almost exactly the same. And you get to avoid the massive drop in value that the first owner had to swallow. That's the smart way to play the game. You let someone else lose the money while you step in and get value at a discount. Depreciation also exposes a deeper problem. 8, people confuse looking rich with being rich. Driving a shiny new car might make you feel successful, but if you're losing thousands in value every year, how successful are you really? True wealth isn't about appearances. It's about assets that grow, income streams that multiply, and money that works for you. A car does the opposite. It takes your money, it declines in value, and it locks you into costs you can't avoid. The key is to see depreciation for what it really is, a quiet thief. It won't scream at you, it won't send you a bill in the mail, but it will slowly rob you of financial freedom if you don't respect its power. The people who get ahead are the ones who understand this and make car buying decisions that minimize depreciation instead of pretending it doesn't exist. They drive cars that make sense for their income, they buy used when it's practical, and they never mistake a liability for an asset. Depreciation may be silent, but if you ignore it, it will be the loudest reason you stay broke. One of the biggest mistakes people make when buying a car is that they look at the car first and their salary second, when it should always be the other way around. Your income is the foundation for what you can realistically afford, and ignoring that is how people end up in financial chains they can't escape. The salary to car price ratio is a simple way to keep yourself in check, to make sure that your car matches your actual earning power instead of your emotional impulses. 8, it's not about what the bank will lend you, because banks will happily approve you for more debt than you should ever take on. It's about what keeps you financially safe while still allowing you to enjoy the freedom that comes with owning a vehicle. The general rule is that your car should cost no more than half of your annual salary. If you make 50,000 a year, then a 25,000 car is the maximum you should even consider. If you make 80,000, then 40,000 is the cap. Anything beyond that is pushing you into dangerous territory, because cars don't behave like investments. They don't hold value, they don't pay you back, and they don't grow over time. The more of your salary you lock up in a depreciating asset, the less you have available for the things that truly matter: investing, saving for a home, building an emergency fund, or creating passive income streams that give you freedom. Every extra dollar you sink into an overpriced car is a dollar that could have been working for you instead of disappearing into thin air. Here's where most people go wrong. They rationalize overspending because of monthly payments. A dealer will tell you it's only $600 a month, and suddenly a $45,000 car seems doable on a $50,000 salary. But that math is a trap. Monthly payments don't show you the big picture. They don't reveal the years of interest you're paying, the insurance costs that rise with a more expensive car, or the opportunity cost of what else you could be doing with that money. By focusing on payments instead of the salary to car price ratio, you fool yourself into thinking you can afford more than you actually can. In reality, that affordable payment might be swallowing up 15 to 20% of your income once you factor in all the expenses. Another way to look at it is to tie car expenses directly to your income flow. If your car is eating up more than 10% of your monthly salary between payments, insurance, gas, and maintenance, it's too expensive for your lifestyle. That's the hard truth most people don't want to face. They'd rather stretch themselves thin for the car that looks impressive in the driveway than accept a car that matches their financial situation. But appearances won't pay your bills, and a nice looking ride won't save you when an emergency expense pops up. Living within the salary to car ratio ensures you have room to breathe financially, and that breathing room is worth more than any fancy badge on a hood. It's also important to remember that salaries grow over time, but bad car decisions compound even faster. If you're early in your career and making $40,000 a year, spending $35,000 on a car is financial suicide, but if you stay disciplined, drive at a $15,000 used car and invest the difference, by the time your salary grows to $80,000 or $100,000, you'll be in a position to buy nicer cars without sacrificing your financial future. The ratio forces you to be patient, to match your car to your stage in life rather than your ego. This isn't about denying yourself forever, it's about timing. If you respect the salary to car price ratio now, you'll create financial stability that allows you to afford luxury later without stress. But if you ignore it, you'll spend years working harder just to keep up with a vehicle that's losing value by the day. A car should give you freedom, not take it away. 8. And the simplest way to guarantee that is by making sure your car never costs more than your salary can comfortably handle. The debate between buying new versus used is one of the most important financial choices you'll ever make with cars, and the right decision often depends more on your financial situation than your personal preference. Most people lean toward new because it feels exciting. You get that new car smell, the latest features, and the confidence that nobody else has driven it before you. But that excitement comes at a steep cost. The second you drive a new car off the lot, it loses value instantly, and within the first year it can drop by as much as 20%. That means a $40,000 new car might be worth only $32,000 by the time you park it in your driveway. Over 5 years, you're looking at a vehicle that's often worth less than half of what you originally paid. If your salary isn't high enough to absorb that kind of financial hit, buying new is more of an emotional decision than a smart one. Used cars, on the other hand, let someone else take that initial depreciation hit for you. A car that's 2 to 3 years old is often significantly cheaper than new, but it's still reliable, modern, and often still under warranty depending on the brand. The truth is, the biggest drop in value happens during those first few years, so stepping in after that point is like buying a quality product at a massive discount. You're still getting a car that looks and feels new, but you're paying thousands less for the privilege. For anyone early in their career, building their savings, or managing a modest salary, this is the smarter route. The car serves its purpose, transportation, without locking you into financial chains that limit your ability to invest or build wealth elsewhere. That doesn't mean new cars never make sense. If you're financially stable, earning a strong salary, and you've already taken care of your other financial priorities like emergency savings, investments, and retirement contributions, then buying new can be justified. In fact, for some people, buying new actually saves money in the long run because they plan to keep the car for 10 years or more. Stretching the lifespan of a new car eliminates the need for frequent upgrades and minimizes maintenance issues compared to older vehicles. But the key point here is that buying new should be a decision based on financial readiness, not ego. If buying new doesn't put a dent in your savings, doesn't exceed the 20 to 4-10 rule, and doesn't stop you from investing in your future, then it's a choice you can afford. Timing is everything. If your salary is still low and your financial foundation is shaky, buying new is almost always a mistake. You'll end up paying premium prices for something that's rapidly losing value, all while stretching yourself thin on monthly payments, insurance premiums, and taxes. But if your salary has grown, your debts are under control, and your investments are compounding, then the financial hit of depreciation won't hurt you the same way. At that stage, buying new can be a calculated decision rather than a reckless one. It's also worth considering lifestyle and usage. If you drive long distances daily or rely on your car for work, then reliability becomes a top priority, and a newer car might make sense for peace of mind. If you barely drive and just need something for errands, a used car is more than enough. Too often, people make car buying decisions based on emotion or status rather than practicality. The reality is that a car is meant to be a tool, and the right choice between new and used comes down to what your salary can sustain, how long you plan to keep the car, and what stage of life you're in financially. If you respect those factors, you'll never end up regretting your decision.